Hello and welcome. My name is Court Booth, and we're here with another episode of our Concord by the People series. It's my pleasure today to introduce a guest to you. Some of you know her, I'm sure, from her many good works around town. Jill Appel. Jill, good morning.
Good morning, Court. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us here at CCTV Studios at CCHS. We're going to spend about half an hour and take a look at some work that was recently very central to your volunteer commitment to the town of Concord, and that is the Comprehensive Sustainable Energy Committee.
Right.
Now, I believe you stepped down from a leadership role on that committee in the spring.
Yep.
But before the dust settles from your tenure, we want to take a look at your experience with the committee, and we think it's an important time for sustainability initiatives.
Right.
Tell us, if you would, what is the purpose and the mandate of that committee?
Basically, the mission of I'm going to call them CSEC because it's just way too long a name.
CSEC.
CSEC.
Okay.
Affectionately known as CSEC. The mission of CSEC is to help everyone save energy. And that includes all sectors, the municipal sector, all of our town buildings and spaces, commercial, all of our businesses, as well as our residential, all of our homes in town. So, and as a committee, they work across all different types of fuels, natural gas, oil, certainly solar's been a big part of what CSEC has promoted. But it's basically to help us all move down to the path to low energy use or lower energy use, same quality of life, you know, but being smarter about how we use energy and using cleaner energy.
Now, is the driver, is the motivator for all the volunteers who serve on this committee, and I think you've got better than half a dozen people
Right.
working on it, is it to help save me money as a local homeowner or a local business person, or to help me be more environmentally conscious and responsible?
Well, I think it's always a dual objective. The beauty of saving energy or using energy wisely is a lot of times it just saves you money. I think that's always an attractive thing for people. I think of one of our most successful initiatives was the Concord Solar Challenge in 2013. We installed solar on 160 homes in town. That means, you know, that was like, I don't know, I think it was 1.3 megawatts of clean power being produced in Concord that we didn't have to bring into Concord, and that helps us reduce the peak by providing our own energy. But it was also based on the state's incentives in place. It was a big financial benefit to the people who are willing and able, you know, who had good roofs, who are willing and able to invest in solar. So the cost savings, you know, revenue, as well as the energy savings and the environmental benefits, we're always shooting for that combination.
We have other green power, as it were, do we not, other than
Right.
Homeowner solar?
Yes. So the Light Plant, I think actually in the most recent monthly newsletter laid out their portfolio of power supply. We're one of 41 communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that has their own municipal light plant. We're not served by National Grid or Eversource for electricity. We have Concord Municipal Light Plant.
And they, if I can interrupt,
yes.
we don't produce, but we buy and sell, and it gives us that
Right.
measure of control. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So they engage in power supply contracts. A major portion of power supply comes from natural gas-fired power plants. But our light plant purchases wind power from Maine. There's a little bit of hydropower. There's some landfill gas in the middle of Massachusetts that we purchase,
Wow.
methane. The light plant recently, I think they've put in about almost 7 megawatts of in-town, what we call utility scale solar. There's a big array on the landfill right
On
near
Route
Walden
2,
Pond,
sure.
right off Route 2. You can see that on the right. And then there's a large facility, 4.5 megawatts, tucked away over by the new school bus facility on land that was formerly owned by W.R. Grace.
And that's down on the Acton-Maynard line,
That's on the
is it not?
Acton-Maynard line, right off of Route 62. So that's, they've got 20-year contracts to purchase the power, whereas when CMLP goes out to the market, they're lucky if they can get 3-year contracts. So when you have in-town solar, it's a 20-year guaranteed power supply at a given price.
So help me out. If we have a contract that suggests we don't own it, another
Right.
entity owns it, and,
Right.
and yet we're first in line on contract potential?
Well, so the key thing about these solar contracts and us as municipal entities, we're nonprofit organizations. Therefore, we cannot fully take advantage of the solar incentives that are available from the federal government and the state. So, well, actually a little bit on the state. I'm not exactly sure on the commercial side, but there is a 30% federal investment tax credit associated with all of solar. And that was recently extended last year or the year before until 2022. But it does not make sense for us as a municipal entity, a nonprofit, to actually own these facilities. What makes sense is for a for-profit organization to own these solar arrays and for us to purchase the power from these organizations.
So they win with the tax incentive, we win with the installation in our borders.
Exactly. We don't have
Okay.
to pay transmission fees to bring that power into town. And we get a good rate. It's cheaper than the power we can buy outside of town. And that varies. Right now, there's a lot of natural gas available. There's a lot of shale gas available in the Marcellus Shale complex in Pennsylvania, Ohio, the Midwest area. So natural gas is really cheap right now, but there's no assurance that natural gas will remain cheap. And we've seen with oil, actually with the problems we've had in Houston, shutting down the oil refineries, oil has just increased in price by 25 cents a gallon. So now they say that's temporary. We're not so sure. But the cool thing about solar is it's guaranteed the sun is going to be shining, at least for the foreseeable future, until it burns out. But that's a long time down the road. That's not anything to worry about right now. But it's a very smart thing for the light plant to add more solar to its portfolio of power sources.
You're very well informed. So 2 questions.
Yeah.
One, tell us about your background, your experience and training that brings you to this role. And secondly, why did you pick this as one of your contributions to the town? What makes this rise to the top in your interests or concerns?
Okay, so with my background, I have an undergrad in accounting, so I have a financial background, and I have a master's in public health. I worked for 15 years in consulting with Arthur Andersen, Andersen Consulting, and then as an internal kind of project manager consultant at Aetna Health Plans in Middletown, Connecticut. When I relocated to Boston, got my master's in public health, then I actually ran the money at 2 large community health centers in Boston. Back in 2006, it was time for me to kind of pull back. My kids were in middle school, entering high school. I needed to be around more. So in 2006 is where I started to move into community work. And I was, at that time, the climate issue was a real concern to me. I engaged with some folks from the Concord Climate Action Network called Concord Can. I went to transition town training, but I had more time to look at the issues that we're facing, us as a community or us as a planet. And so I got more engaged in that, and that was what interested me. I think we ought to assume that climate change is the biggest public health crisis we're ever going to have. I know we have a number of health crises, but our ability to mitigate climate damage and to protect people is really important. So that kind of is what initially attracted to me to this whole area. Okay, now tell me your second question.
So the second question, I think you're beginning to answer, which is why is this of primary interest to you? And I think what you've told us is you're a believer in objective fact.
Right.
You're a believer in hard data.
Right.
You don't dispute what Jim Hansen was trying to tell us in the 70s about climate change.
Right.
And so I think you're telling me that all of this concerns you, but you could put your time and talents into many areas that would benefit us in town. What I'm hearing you say, if I'm correct, is, do I paraphrase correctly, climate change is perhaps the biggest threat that faces us, and you have a public health background, so this is the way you think.
Right. This is the way I think.
And you have kids.
Right. And I care about their future.
Yeah.
Right.
We have, as of this moment in time, the day we're having this conversation, 1,149 days until the next election. But that's the national election.
Right.
So at some point in our conversation, maybe we'll discuss how we can impact on a scale larger than Concord.
Right.
But for right now, what do you see as the how do I put this? The unmet obligations or the commitments and responsibilities that local residents like me should be paying attention to, that we're perhaps turning a blind eye to. I'm not a climate science denier.
Right.
However, I struggle to get through daily life and don't perhaps pay attention to everything I should be paying attention to. What are the moves I can make as a homeowner in Concord that I'm not doing right now?
Well, I mean, I think, first of all, I am really sensitive to the fact that people are super busy. And, you know, I've been here in Concord for 22 years. I've raised kids here. I've had kids in the schools. I have my last one in my youngest is now in college. And so I've been there. I know how busy people are. The question is, and you know, this was an initiative of CSEC. In February, we put together what was called the Cooler Concord Fair. And the point of that fair was to give people actionable information in a simple way, and to help them know what matters and what doesn't. Because people get assaulted. First of all, I'm convinced of the data on climate change. Okay, so I don't spend any mental time there.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the other thing is, you know, what kind of person am I? Do I want to get involved at the policy level? Right now, I'm very interested in making Concord a role model for other communities and using what we've done here to create models and tools for other communities. So this event we ran in February was based on a book by the Union of Concerned Scientists called Cooler, Smarter, and it had the top 10. And so if you want to focus on anything, you know, focus on the top 10. And I'm going to put in a plug for coolerconcord.org, because I think everybody in town should go to that website and say, oh, LED lighting, what do I need to know about LED lighting? The cool thing about LED lighting is it's quick, it's way less expensive, and you save time because you're not changing your light bulbs all the time. And it's really meaningful in terms of reducing your carbon footprint.
So
the other
we'll
big
repeat
things,
that, coolerconcord.org.
Coolerconcord.org.
And would I go there even if I had been to the fair and get a refresher?
Absolutely.
Resources?
Yes,
Okay.
Please go there. What we produced for the Cooler Concord Fair were a set of one-pagers that what we tried to capture in one page is everything you needed to know about transportation, everything you need to know about, I don't know, home weatherization. So we've taken those one-pagers and I mean, improved upon them and made them more graphic and added a blog and photos and videos and things like that. But it's all out there and it's a resource for people. But again, if you want to focus on something, try going hybrid or electric with your vehicle. Transportation is a huge component of our carbon footprint. Make sure your home is weatherized. I mean, make sure that it's tight. You've got the attic is insulated. I have one friend who, as part of CSEC's Green Your Heat program a year and a half ago, had his attic. Now, he's been here 25 years, right? Every time it snows, he shovels off his roof. He took advantage of that program, got $1,000 to spend in the attic on weatherization. He hasn't been on his roof since. And I mean, so not only is it saving him money, but it's saving him, it's probably saving him from a hospital visit.
Yeah.
I think, because sooner or later he's going to fall off the roof.
Get off the roof. Yeah.
So the key thing is, know about the big impact items, work on the big impact items.
So you say big impact, and yet what you've tried to do with these 10 is scale them down into things that I have to consider anyway.
Right.
And if I have to make choices anyway, in terms of transportation, how I heat my house, how I insulate my house, how I manage my landscape, you're telling me there are big moves I can make, and I should do those before I make the small moves. You're trying to get me a little smarter about
exactly.
this. Okay.
The whole idea is cooler, smarter. And there are things like, I don't want to diss recycling, but recycling is entry-level behavior. It gets you used to the concept of, okay, I don't throw this out, or I compost. The waste aspect of the carbon footprint is not as large as other major decisions. Ride a bike instead of driving, get a higher mileage car. It doesn't have to be electric or hybrid, but it's the hybrids and the electrics are worth the investment. They're totally worth the investment. And all of these things pay dividends in terms of saving money.
So in regard to recycling, I think what I'm hearing is keep doing it, but don't get very self-satisfied about it, because the impact is not truly significant as compared to some of the other moves I can make. Right.
And the coolest thing, I think, were the Willard School kids from the Environmental Club, and I forgot what their name was, but they had, at the Cooler Concord Fair, they had taken their little houses and they had insulated their houses, and they had done little checks on how much, and putting it here and there. And that to me was a project that was focused on a big impact area.
You are involved currently in a event regarding electric lawnmowers, correct?
Yes.
Is this a big polluter?
All right, so I'll put in a plug for the Lawnmower Swap Plus event, and you can still sign up to turn in your gas mower for a $100 Concord rebate. We've got a deal going with Home Depot. There's an organization in Lincoln called Quiet Communities, and we're working very closely with Concord Public Works, which is awesome, to run this event on September 23rd. You can go online right now. coolerconcord.org, there you go.
Got it, okay.
To register, you can order a mower, you put down a deposit, and we have 80 people already signed up for this event. This says a deadline of August 31st. You can really sign up all the way through the day of the event. It's just a matter of whether your mower will be there for you to pick up, or whether you'll have to travel to Home Depot in Waltham for it. But, lawn care, so we got to start thinking about, we're kind of terrorized by lawn care. It's loud, it's polluting, and there's stats out there that talk about, 1 hour of a blower is worth 11 cars traveling X number of miles. I mean, it's extraordinary.
So it's disproportionate.
Yeah, and when you think about it from a public health standpoint, yes, there are no noxious gases put out by, these are all battery operated. You just take the battery and you put it in and you press the start button, and it is quiet. There's no pollution, there's no gas, there's no oil. So I think we're the first community, we like to be first, in Massachusetts to do this kind of lawnmower swap. We have several other communities after this, I think, who want to kind of follow in our footsteps. But It's really important for a number of reasons to start thinking about our yards as the places where we can save energy too.
Now, I'm a big fan and in favor of the electric motor for something like this as opposed to the internal combustion,
Right.
because among other things, fewer moving parts. Repairs
Exactly.
tend to almost disappear because there's just not much to repair anymore.
Right.
But to put my mind at ease about the battery, is this one of the cheap lithiums that's going to set itself on fire, or is this
Well,
one that's
absolutely not,
been...
Court.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
So I don't know. You can also watch a bunch of YouTube videos on these Ego electric mowers. It's the #1 Consumer Reports
So it has
mower.
been out a little bit. It's been
It's
tested.
been out.
Okay.
It's Home Depot can't keep them on the shelves. That is the issue. They're getting snapped up so quickly. They're light, so they're not. And I think they charge in about 45 minutes, and they run for 45 minutes. And I think the other thing that we've got to realize, Concord is really big with lawn services. There are a lot of lawn services in town, and it's time for those companies, to migrate to electric equipment. There's equipment available for, blowers, hedge trimmers, string trimmers. You can even get an electric snow blower. But it's time for that industry to start moving and for us to start setting the standards for how we want things to happen within our community. Because, I go out in the morning, I hear into my backyard, I hear the birds singing, and then I hear the lawnmower on the left, that was the right, and the lawnmower on, the right, and it disrupts my day, and it's loud.
So it's suddenly dawning on me, I should not only have signed up for this, I should be telling my neighbors about it, because
Exactly.
I'm the beneficiary if we don't have quite the howl on a Saturday that
Right.
many neighborhoods experience.
Right. It's a good idea. It's a great trend.
Now, is this something that comes through CSEC, or is this an independent initiative?
So what we
Both?
heard, so part of the purpose of the Cooler Concord Fair in February was to get a read on what people were interested in. And so we handed everybody a sheet of paper, the carbon points calculator, and we had them, we weren't excellent at explaining this, so we got mixed results. But in the Sustainable Yards exhibit, we had 80 people sign up to convert from gas to electric. And so what we did was we ran with this. And so this should be one of a number of events that CSEC continues to sponsor throughout the course of the year to just help people move forward to action. I think a lot of the information out there is conceptual, and you don't know how to just get it done. And CSEC is all about how to get it done and make it easy for people.
So, looking at this as one event, Cooler Concord as another, CSEC as the continuing initiative to move us forward.
Right.
Could you tell us a little bit about how CSEC fits within the larger mosaic of, if you will, of town goals, town long-range plans? Is it in sync with other activities in town? I imagine so, but who does the committee interface with? Where do the mandates come from? Are there any resources afforded to you, or do you have to
Do we have
find
to
them all?
beg for every dollar?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so we are a town committee. We love working with other town committees. We always like to be pushing other town committees to think about the sustainability or energy reduction aspects of what they do. We've worked a lot with the light plant. They have an excellent solar rebate, and we're applying for a state program that's going to help members of our community install high-efficiency heat pumps to replace oil and propane and electric heating, and it'll also provide air conditioning. So there is a hopeful partnership and continued partnership with the light plant. We're excited about this working with Concord Public Works. I mean, ultimately, we would really like to work more, I think, with planning, because planning sets up the requirements for all of these new monster houses that we have built in town. And if home heating and cooling is a key area to save energy, we want to make sure that whatever is being built in town is built to a very high standard. And so, and we work with also informal groups, the Concord Climate Action Network. They have their own set of objectives, but they'll deliver communications, and we'll interface on things. The Mothers Out Front organization, you know, participates, volunteers. They are more focused on policies and their own issues. So it gets to be kind of like the Venn diagram of where do we all overlap and how can we work together. The town has a sustainability account that has monies available. It's largely for municipal use, but if we have a significant community effort, there is support. The Cooler Concord Fair that we had in February has been supported and promoted. Chris Whalen has been, the town manager has been waiting for us to do it for a long time. So we did that, and the town supported that with funding.
So that fund is something you and I see in the town budget at town meeting time.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
our doing that those resources are there.
Yes.
Okay.
But keep in mind also, CSEC led the charge for Concord to be designated a green community several years ago. I think it was the same year that we did the solar challenge. And that's brought in another $600,000 to the town. That supported our Green Your Heat program, where we got 150 people to weatherize their homes, and it's supported a lot of municipal energy improvements as well. So CSEC has brought in money in addition to working with the town to help further on the municipal side, but also the residential.
We have just about a minute before we have to finish up. So I'm hoping that one thing you could share with us as we wind up is what kind of time and talent might CSEC or other citizen committees in town be seeking right now to continue the good work you've been doing? Who else do we need to bring in to make the results as good as they can be?
Well, I think CSEC in general needs as many members. It's a 9-member committee. I can't remember whether it's 7 or 8 at this point in time, but they need people who are interested. It's not a huge commitment, yet it's not a small commitment, but people with kind of community outreach, marketing, that background is really important.
Okay.
And, you know, so I think town committees in general are always looking for members who are interested and willing to pitch in to make this happen. And I think CSEC in particular would love to have parents of school-age children, more of that involvement in the committee.
That's useful because I was concerned you'd be saying we need a doctorate in this or 10 years of experience in that is highly technical, and you're saying no, there's a number of roles to play and talents that are needed. So again, the website is?
coolerconcord.org.
Okay.
And I do want to put in a plug for the schools to say thank you so much. It's been great working with the schools, with the high school, the principal, Mike Mastrullo, on the Cooler Concord Fair, and we are looking forward to working more with the schools.
Wonderful.
Coolerconcord.org, though.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
So it's been our pleasure to have Jill Appel with us today from Concord's Sustainable Energy Committee, recently departed member on to new things.
I know, I keep talking like I'm still on the committee.
Yeah. Well, you're passing the baton, and we're grateful to you for all your work, and we'll continue to benefit from your leadership in the future, I'm sure.
Great. Thanks so much.
Folks, thanks for joining us today at Concord by the People.